This front yard creek bed swallows thousands of gallons every storm, and I built it for about $500. Central Texas has some of the worst flash floods in the country. Streets overflow, water rushes into storm drains and storm channels, and downstream, people pay the price. But what if every home captured water like this? Thousands of gallons redirected into our soils. That means healthier plants, less flooding, and more groundwater recharge. In this video, I'm gonna show you how I built this, from spotting the opportunity to the tool that made digging realistic during weekend nap times to the plants now thriving on stormwater. First, let me show you the opportunity that you might be missing in your own yard. Most people see street runoff as a problem. I saw thousands of gallons of free water. During every rain, street water naturally wants to flow toward my property because of this little divot here. Instead of letting it rush past, I decided to capture it. Think about it. Your streets collect water from a huge area. Even a moderate rain can send massive amounts of water rushing past your house. That's irrigation water going to waste. This concept comes from Brad Lancaster, really the pioneer of rainwater harvesting. His book, Rainwater Harvesting for Drylands and Beyond, completely changed how I think about water. He showed that in Tucson, Arizona, which gets only 11 inches of rain per year, more water falls on the city than residents consume. We just need to capture it instead of draining it away. In San Antonio, which on average has about 30 inches of rain a year, think of the possibilities. What if instead of all that water rushing into storm drains and storm channels and potentially contributing to downstream flooding, it's soaked into our yards instead? When we divert water from streets and impermeable surfaces to the permeable surfaces like our landscapes, we're slowing it down at the source. To spot your own opportunities, look for natural low spots between your yard and the street, or spots along your driveway where you think there might be some opportunity to direct it to your yard. Watch where water flows during the next rain. Not everyone has this exact setup, but more people have this opportunity than realize it. So I mapped out this course for this dry creek, creating bends and a meandering path to give it a more natural look. You can use marking paint like I did, or you could lay out a garden hose or a couple garden hoses to help yourself visualize the shape and make some adjustments before committing to the dig. When you're mapping out your dry creek, plan for at least 2 to 4 feet wide. And I went closer to 4 feet wide on just about everything, since I felt this was going to be a slightly larger scale creek for capturing that street runoff volume. The curves aren't just aesthetic, they as well help that water to slow down even further and soak in instead of just rushing through your creek. So think about that as you start to shape and mold it. Something crucial, though, is to consider the stakes of your site. You definitely don't want to create a creek that, if it fails or fills up, could risk damaging property or diverting water towards your house or a neighbor's property. For me, the stakes here were super low. I'm pretty lucky. Once this fills up with the moderate downslope that we have on our street, that water would either just flow across our yard, which is less likely because our yard is technically upslope a little bit, or just continue down the street from the end of our driveway just like it did before. So really no problems here. I'm lucky in that scenario, but make sure you assess your specific situation carefully. We started digging this with shovels, but it became clear pretty fast that this was gonna take forever. The breakthrough that changed everything was buying the very affordable Westinghouse electric tiller, my wife's very keen suggestion. If we were going to get it, I wanted the flexibility to use it for other projects and not to be rushed to finish everything in a single rental day, so we bought it. I'll link that in the description if you want to check that out. I then set the tiller to the depth that I wanted and ran it back and forth along the entire course of the dry creek. This broke up the soil and made shoveling out the loosened dirt vastly easier. What could have taken multiple weekends just took 2 nap times, about 4 hours total of work for my wife and I. And now we own the tiller for future projects if we want. I got some things planned in the pipeline. But for dimensions on the creek, I followed some pretty standard recommendations. You want to make it about 6 inches deep and roughly 4 feet wide throughout the entire course. I did use a tape measure to check periodically as we dug to keep it consistent, or at least know that I'm hitting the measurements that we needed to. These dimensions have worked well for us for handling the volume of street runoff that we do see. And our approach was iterative. You know, we dug a section, tested it, adjusted the shape a little bit, stepped back, took a look, and then dug some more. You don't have to perfect this in one pass, but once we had the basic shape dug out, we tested the entire route by running a hose from the top. And the one question was really, does the water flow downhill smoothly? If so, you're then ready for the next stage, which is rocks. Of course, we felt bad wasting water during the testing, but it was worth it to check the issues before getting rocks in here and, you know, preventing having to take them back out. But like most DIY projects, ours sat here unfinished for a month or so while life happened, but luckily during that time we got multiple major rains. I ran outside each time excitedly to see how things were working, and the creek captured massive amounts of street water, slowed it down, and let it infiltrate beautifully. Those storms proved the concept worked exactly as we had hoped. Using rocks around our property really saved us hundreds of dollars, as opposed to if we were to buy them from a rock yard or, you know, Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that. So very lucky in that instance. I think that it looks still natural and great. And so I'm super happy that we got to use something that can be a problem for a lot of our plantings elsewhere, at least just a nuisance, to use it in a very sensible way for a project like this. But first, you want to focus on your larger rocks. So we can place these as various focal points throughout bends. And this is something that, again, you can be a bit iterative with. You can put the rock down, step back, take a look. You put a few down, step back, take a look. And then as well as you get plants in the ground, things might start to look differently. Then you can move on to your medium-sized rocks, which you can use for some stabilization along the edges of the creek, or, you know, throw a few here or there throughout the middle of it. And then finally, you know, as you have them, small rocks to really fill out the main course. Okay, it is super important to pay special attention to the entry point where the street water will first enter your creek bed. Whether you're building a dry creek along the street or anywhere else, you want to pay attention to the spillways. So you'll need some bigger rocks at the spillway opening to make sure that you can handle the flow impact and prevent erosion, making sure that your spillway doesn't collapse on itself and the water can no longer enter. So this spot between the street and your creek will take the most punishment during your rain events, so make sure to reinforce it well. And something else crucial that most tutorials are gonna get wrong: don't use landscape fabric. This plastic-derived material can prevent the infiltration that we want from our captured water. Plus, we're trying to create a natural creek bed here, not something with synthetic materials underneath. There's enough plastic in our soils, so please don't add any more. I placed rocks directly on the soil so captured water can soak into the ground and recharge our aquifers. I'm not done planting yet here by any account. I like to plant a little bit, take a step back, see how things look, and plant some more. So for our dry creek, I took some cues from a water collection system that I like at Phil Hardberger Park here in San Antonio, but adapted it for my own conditions. So here in this front yard piece of our property, with our driveway to one side, the street on the other, we need plants that can handle full sun just about all day, dry, hot conditions. But of course now, with the introduction of the creek, they need to be able to handle the periodic flooding, essentially, during those rain events. So as you could maybe see from the footage that I shared, there's about 4 to 6 inches of water that's gonna flow through this creek during a rain. And this place doesn't necessarily stay waterlogged after the rain for very long. We are on the blackland prairie here, meaning we have a lot of clay, or predominantly clay, in our soil. So that would be the type of soil where that would maybe be more of an issue, but it's also quite gravelly as well, at least on our specific site, so that's not much of a problem, and we see the water infiltrate reasonably fast. However, to start, I did pick several grasses to surround the edges of the dry creek, help to prevent erosion, and keep all the berm edges ultimately in place. So that's Lindheimer muley for one switchgrass, which I have right here in big blue stem as well. I want to get a few different varieties of grasses as well, maybe add some more of these, but in due time. These create a natural barrier that's going to hold everything together. As for the shrubs and small trees, I planted them in and along the edges to benefit from the rains, grow over time, to provide us with important screening that we want here. That's coverage from us, our house, and the street. That's Texas kidneywood, flame leaf sumac, things that can handle and perform quite well in dry, hot conditions. I also want to experiment with a couple of button bush. I want to see how they can do in the periodic dry periods. Maybe it will be enough water to sustain them with time, but those are all deciduous plants, of course, so I do have more of my evergreen structure kind of on the peripheral and outside of the dry creek on both sides, street side and our yard side, to give us the ultimate privacy screening that we want. Now, my Texas native plant purists may notice in the back there that we do have some non-native oleanders around this creek. Yes, I know. But these have been here for about 5 years now, and they mind their own business. They handle the hot, hot sun, and they've grown exceptionally well. So for a time in which we really want coverage and screen from the street, we're gonna keep them in place at least for now. Nonetheless, as all these plants establish their root systems, they help to improve the soil structure and water movement. So plants with these deeper, healthier, more robust root systems can create channels that help water further penetrate the soil, which works really well with our ultimate goal of infiltrating as much of that street water as possible. Healthy established plants make for healthier soils, right? Which ultimately makes for greater water infiltration capacity. With all my new plantings, I also took the time to sheet mulch around them and on the sides of the edges and berm to attempt to reduce as much weed pressure as I possibly could. Now, with the not so perfect, not flat surface, this can make for some complications, but I thought that something was definitely better than nothing. So let's wrap up by talking about the numbers. In a typical storm, this system here can capture thousands of gallons of street runoff. My plantings are all going to thrive even through drought with this extra captured rainwater, and every gallon captured is one less gallon rushing into storm drains downstream. So the total cost of this project for me was about $500. $200 for the tiller, and $300 in counting, I suppose, for plants. The rocks were free since I had them all on my property. Of course, that won't work for everyone. However, I got one quote for this project, $15,000. My total time investment has been about 8 to 10 hours here. This is something that many of us can do on our own. Regardless, here's the bigger picture. San Antonio and Central Texas have experienced devastating flash floods with tragic consequences. Each property, private or public, residential or commercial, that captures and infiltrates street water or driveway runoff slows the flow and reduces downstream volume and ultimately intensity. Imagine if every property with runoff opportunity did this. We make thousands of small diversions which add up to significant flood impact reductions and also self-sustaining native plantings of perennials, shrubs, and trees that beautify, clean our air, and shade our streets. Look for natural collection points where street water wants to enter your property or driveway water that's rushing down into your street. That's hundreds, if not thousands of gallons of free irrigation water just waiting to be captured. San Antonio's and Texas's water challenges will not solve themselves, but maybe if enough of us start capturing our street water, capturing water from our driveways and our roofs, and not letting it rush past, we can help turn the vicious cycle of too much water all at once and start to make it a little more virtuous. If this project inspired you and you want to dive deeper, I've got 2 resources for you. First, grab my 1-page project plan with the complete plant list and materials breakdown. That's linked in the description below. And if you want to learn more about creating sustainable and resilient Texas native landscapes, check out my free email course on Texas native plant landscaping, also linked below, or at coryames.com/txnative. Make sure to subscribe for more videos on turning Texas landscape problems into resources, and I'll see you next time.